what's up, everyone? Welcome back to the Montyverse. Today is a special day because this is the first edition of a new series of videos we will have on the Montyverse called Versed In. And when I started the Montyverse, it was about me being able to share my passion for comic books, for all the media, comic book movies and anime, and all the stuff that I was extremely passionate about. So this series is going to be about people that I know that reached out to me that I know are extremely passionate about certain subjects. And this episode is special indeed because today's episode is Versed in Gaming. And I know someone who's extremely passionate about gaming, so he was definitely my first choice for a guest on the show, and he will be hosting this episode. Some of you may know him. He's a very good friend of mine and a video game aficionado. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. John Lastrina.
Okay, yeah, Zach, like he's one shot on B, just throw a grenade. Zach, no, dude, Zach,
John.
throw a grenade. Wait,
John, we're live, John.
Oh, wait, where did mine? Sorry, guys, little scheduling snafu. Sorry. Hey, hi, how you doing, Monty? Good to see you. Good to be here.
How are you, pal?
Was this today? Oh man, I guess it was Halo night. Hey.
Listen, speaking of Halo, dude, I know specifically me and you, we have been playing Halo Infinite a lot together. We are both extremely big Halo fanatics, and you reached out to me and you said, hey, like, we should talk about Halo, and I thought that was a great idea. And because it's something we both have in common, it's both something we've loved since the original Halo Combat Evolved. So that is going to be the topic today, and I think I'm going to let you take the reins on this. So what do you want to talk about in regards to the Halo franchise?
Well, when I think about Halo, it brings back so much fond memories. When I think back to the game you just mentioned, Halo Combat Evolved,
Awesome.
I love this game so much. It quickly became one of my favorite games. It's the reason why my brother and I got our original Xbox way back in the day. And I just have so much fond memories of going to the neighbor's house, playing System Link Halo, 2 systems, 2 TVs, all 8 of us, yelling at each other, playing CTF games on Sidewinder, Blood, hours and hours and hours of fun. And then I think I've played that game, the single-player campaign, so much with so many different people. It's how, in a way, back then you would build relationships through games. Gaming's all about relationships and having fun, and I've played that game so many times on Legendary. The library is probably still my most least loved, scared level, maybe, that I played in the video game.
That was intense.
In the first-person shooter, so crazy, so intense with the Flood. But I love Halo. I love talking about Halo. It's just, again, Bungie, the creators, I mean, they knew how to make and still do a first-person shooter. Now they're doing Destiny, but they knew the formula, and they made 5 total great games outside of the original 3, and then 2 spin-offs, and then here we are today with 343.
Yeah,
still going.
And it's that's what the fondest memories I have of Halo. Like, Halo is responsible for so many fun evenings with your friends, because when Combat Evolved came out, like you said, you and your brother played. Me and my brother would play. Me and my brother played all the campaigns of the first 3 Halo together, split screen, and that's something I remember. But also the LAN parties, or just like 4 people on a split screen, playing huddled together on a small TV, like playing together. And definitely screen peeking at each other's screens to get kills. Those were so fun. I don't think I've ever had more fun or more nostalgia for a first-person shooter game than I do for any of the Halo games. I mean, I have such vivid and clear memories of playing the first 3 specifically because they were so iconic and they became so larger than life after Combat Evolved. I remember the sheer anticipation for Halo 2 when it dropped, that I think we beat. It was a short campaign, but I think we might have beat it in a day and a half, maybe. And on a school night. In between school.
Speaking of I very remember the build up to the launch of Halo 2, where I had some of my friends in school. One of them was doing a film project, and it was called Fernandez 11-9, because November 9th was the release date of Halo 2, and it was a documentary style video leading up to release of Halo 2, following one of my friends and his love of Halo, and just like I know I'm in it in parts at like a tournament for the original Halo, and just it was just I mean that was just fun. I mean, and then that game kind of launched with Xbox Live, and that sort of changed our interactions with Halo because now we didn't have to just be in the same room. We could like how we play now. We play over the internet on Xbox Live, um, and it just changed. So we don't have that same interactions we did with the original Halo one.
Yeah.
But I mean, there was still, I mean, local split screen multiplayer was still had became a thing up till for me for Halo 3 when that came out as well for me as well.
Yeah, I mean Halo 2 opened the world for me as a gamer, not only in the sense of it opened the like it introduced me to new like the vast mythology of the Halo universe, which what I would absolutely fall in love in, but also like online. That was the first game I ever experienced online play with, personally, and that old school Xbox Live online play, it was just so ridiculously absurd and fun, and it just blew my mind when I was younger. Just being able to play with all of the different people from all around the world. Um, yeah, it's just I have so much nostalgia for Halo 2 specifically, but I remember playing that campaign and then the game ends with Chief going finish the I'm finishing the fight, and then what a
With the
great
bomb,
cliffhanger
oh my God, it was so epic, so hype.
to hype up Halo 3, and I've never been more. I think while the hype behind Halo 2 was huge, I've never been more excited to play a game opening day than I was Halo 3. I think the fever pitch for me was so high on the release day of Halo 3 that I think I might have just burned through that campaign, in like 2 nights. It was just, and that's just the power of this franchise, right? I mean, it's Xbox. It was Xbox's golden boy for a very long time, and some would say it still is. I would definitely say that.
I would agree,
It's
yeah. I would agree. I mean, you look at their other big franchises that Xbox has procured or purchased, like, if you will. I mean, there's Gears of War and Forza, and then at one point Fable, which is sort of kind of coming back. Maybe we haven't heard
mhm.
it's coming back, but who knows when. But Master Chief Halo, I mean, that was the poster. I mean, you're talking about a game that launched a brand new home console. I mean, it was the killer app, and I mean, look at it now. I mean, as of last year, February 2021, 81 million copies total sold of the franchise. I mean, $6.5 billion roughly in revenue. I mean, this is a major franchise. I mean, obviously, I got books on my shelves. I've pop figures, action figures. I got a T-shirt. There's a
That's a cool
television
shirt.
streaming series right now. I mean, it's a big deal. Halo is a big deal, and it should always be treated like a big deal.
It has become, the mythology itself has become, just the franchise itself has become larger than life in a way. It started off as Xbox's golden goose, and now it is such. I feel like it's something that's very much ingrained in the pop culture zeitgeist. I feel like Halo as a franchise has evolved past the video game medium, and it becomes easily recognizable to people out like in the general public. I think if people saw a picture of Master Chief, they'd go, "Oh, that's the Halo guy," and that says something to Bungie and Microsoft and the franchise itself. They were able to create something so special that it's withstood the test of time. I mean, people to this day are still going back and they're playing the Master Chief Collection, the remastered Combat Evolved, the remastered Halo 2, and it just shows that how great these games truly were, to have this much love and passion and care by so many people put into this franchise. I mean, again, like you said, we just got the Halo streaming series after it felt like forever they were trying to get Master Chief in live action in some form, and I know there was a lot of people excited for it, and I think it was a big hit for Paramount Plus, despite our feelings on it, and it is getting a season two.
Yes, it's. I mean, it must be doing well somehow. I mean, yeah. I mean, it's got a season two, and who knows, maybe a season three. And I mean, I'm sure there's gonna be more licensing, more product, more figures, more toys, that kind of thing out there. I mean, it's also too. I mean, the influence of Halo. I mean, one of Microsoft's big competitors, obviously Sony, they tried to launch their own first-person shooter franchise, Killzone, as sort of a what was talked about as a Halo killer. I mean, it's a pretty fun series overall. It's changed a lot from the first game. So there's been four games in the series, but it's been on the shelf now since the launch of the PlayStation 4 in 2013. So who knows if that's going to come back or not? I mean, it didn't really kill Halo, and it didn't really make a big splash, but it's possible to come back. But I mean, that's the power that Halo had to influence all these other shooters. If you played Destiny, I mean by Bungie, so
Yeah.
it looked like Halo, it felt like Halo, the shooting, the combat, and that was the reason why I wanted to play Destiny because it was guys from the guys who made Halo.
Dude, I when I first played Destiny, it felt like Halo, and I wasn't just saying that because I was nostalgic, because at that point I was very nostalgic for old Halo when Destiny came out. But it just plays like Halo. It feels like Halo. Like the mythology feels like Halo. It's just the way the story's told, and uh, there's just it feels like there's a lot of things that echo the Halo universe in Destiny. But what I'm really curious about is in your professional and personal opinion, what do you think made that first Halo game so special? Like what do you think? Like you said, 20 years later, no one has even come close to the worldwide global phenomenon that Halo Combat Evolved was. And why do you think that was?
It it was different. I mean, if you think about the early first person shooters, you Doom, Wolfenstein. I mean, obviously those are dated at this point. Those are different. But it just felt different. It felt very modern. The first time you put up it looked real. Like it looked amazing. The graphics were amazing, the character designs, and just the music too. Like they're like, some like the more like rock guitars and like the Gregorian like chants kind of.
Yeah, the Gregorian
It
chant
just felt
influence.
different. It felt very modernized for the time. And looking back, sure, I mean, like my original on the OG Xbox, it's gonna look a little rough, uh, but I mean, it still plays very well. So Bungie just figured out how to take the machine of the Xbox at that time, which was the most powerful console created, and just found a way just to get every little thing out of it most with Halo 2. But that game it just played different. I just remember
Yeah.
thinking like this just plays different. Like I was a big SOCOM 2 player on PS2, which I mean around the same time frame. But even that, I mean that was third person. But I mean Halo just first person, third person, they just feel different. But the way everything was so fluid on Halo, the story was so cool. Different alien races, human beings just fighting for survival in a at this point, I guess it's only been like 500 years in the future from
Yeah.
where we are now. So I mean, it's I guess technically near future ish. You want to say? And
Yeah.
just all the different characters you like Sergeant Johnson, Captain Keys, and
Do you know what
Cortana.
I you know what another reason I think makes the game so special? The world was so detailed, but the protagonist, the Master Chief, John 117, in that first game especially, like he obviously gets developed as the series goes on, but in that first game, he is and if you watch interviews with Bungie's development team, this was 100% done on purpose. They held back on developing him on purpose because they wanted him to be an empty shell. They wanted him to be an audience surrogate. They wanted you to be the Master Chief when you play the game. And that really, like, when I remember very specifically playing that game and feeling like I was the Master Chief when I was playing, like taking out these evil aliens, saving, like, feeling like you could save humanity, like driving the warthog, using the gunner. It all, they built this game that was not only technically really well done, but also immersive and fantastical in its storytelling, that it really pulls you in from a creative standpoint. So I think it's a perfect marriage of all of the technical points that you brought up. The fact that we really never got a first person shooter that looked or played like this before. And there are great side characters. The designs are fantastic. The vehicle play is fantastic. All of these things. And then you're introduced to this protagonist of the Master Chief, and I think it's just a perfect marriage. It's a one in a million shot that perfectly falls together. And from there, I think it's the rest is just history from that point forward.
Yeah, that's a good thing to bring. Yeah, because he's just almost like an empty shell kind of thing. It's just
Mm.
almost just a voice because you don't see his face, and then he has a voice, and he has a voice inside his head, and
Mm-hmm.
Cortana, and the connection between those two, where they need each other, they help each other. I and seeing that relationship flow out throughout the original trilogy, and then kind of where it's gone since was up for
Yeah,
debate whether or not it's a good thing or not. But just the relationship between those two in those first three games, the love between them was it's very beautiful.
yeah. Well, while we're here, let's talk about it. Let's talk about the evolution of Master Chief through 6 games. Because as we already talked about in game 1, he's pretty much just an empty shell. He is just yes, no, get the job done, the baddest of the bad, the coolest of the cool. And then we start to see him fleshed out a little bit more in the original trilogy. He's very stoic, and he's very mission oriented, goal oriented. But we do get some semblances of some personality from John in the first 3 games, and we do see that he is very while he's not an affectionate person, he does have affectations to people like Sergeant Johnson and Cortana and Miranda and Jacob Keyes and
And the Arbiter.
and the Arbiter. Him and the Arbiter become extremely good friends. And I feel like what Halo 4 and 5 kind of dropped the ball on is they progress John too much. I understand what they were trying to do. They were trying to tell a soap opera type-ish story between Chief and Cortana, but I think it betrays a lot of what Bungie did with the character in the original trilogy, and I think that's why the narratives of 4 and 5 suffer a little bit. While some people say that the multiplayer in 5 was extremely good. I think that is overshadowed by how terrible the campaign of 5 was. You know, but we're kind of regressing in a good way to a chief that is both vocal, that is both cold yet affectionate in Halo Infinite. We are kind of getting like a chief that learned to kind of rein in his trust a little bit after being betrayed, and it's almost a return to form. And I kind of really like the chief that we got in Infinite so far. But what are your thoughts on the character of the Master Chief?
Yeah, I mean, you brought up five, and I think about five a lot and how much I just did not like the direction the game took for its campaign. Like you said, yes, the multiplayer obviously very. That's why you go to that game, the multiplayer. The campaign though, the idea I remember like kind of marketing wise, it seemed almost after for like when Chief loses the voice in his head,
Mm.
Cortana, that seemingly that he could be going off on kind of going rogue. And when you bring in Spartan Locke as this guy who he's a fine character on his own kind of thing, and as someone who's maybe going to hunt him down and try to take control of Chief, because now you've just unleashed the most badass super soldier in the galaxy on the rest of the galaxy, and he's lost this voice that's been with him for so long, and like kind of what's he gonna do? But we didn't really get that in five. We just got two separate teams, more lock heavy, and it was sort of it was Halo Five Guardians featuring Master Chief and his team.
Yeah,
It's like
and
I just want to play as Master Chief.
here's the thing. Let's talk about, because I have my thoughts on Halo 5. My main thought being, do you remember the Super Bowl trailer we got for Halo 5? I'm pretty sure it was Super Bowl trailer where it was this beautiful cinematic trailer where we were teased that Master Chief has gone rogue, and it's
Yep.
going to be a Civil War type story, like you said. Spartan Locke will be hunting down Chief. Chief will be on the run, and that's going to be the story of Halo 5. Why is Master Chief gone rogue? Why did they? Who is this Spartan Locke? Why is he tracking Chief down? And I remember being super excited to play that game. I was very excited to play that game. That was not the game we got. It
Nope,
was a
not even
completely different
close.
game.
Yep. Yep. I
Um,
remember playing that, and I mean, they had great side like character on the teams. You had Nathan Fillion
yeah,
as like a character who's great, but it's like, dude,
reprising
like
his
what?
role as Buck. He played Buck, right?
Yeah, I remember correctly. Yeah,
And here's the thing: they tried to take the same risk in Halo 5 that Bungie took in Halo 2, because to play half that game as the Arbiter was a huge risk. Not only that, but to play the last level of the most
that's true.
anticipated video game sequel of all time as someone other than the Master Chief was such a huge narrative risk. And it paid off because they told a great story. And there was great mechanics, and everything was improved over the first one. Whereas in Halo 5, you spend the majority of the game, like you said, playing as Spartan Locke, sometimes playing as Master Chief, but the story is all over the place and you don't really know what's going on or why any of this is happening until like the end, and then we're kind of just like thrust upon a huge twist, and that's it. The game's over.
I'll be honest, I didn't care. I was like, I love Halo, but I don't care. I don't like this. I don't care. I don't think I'll ever revisit that campaign. I might, but not likely.
It's the only campaign I think I've ever on the only I know for a fact it's the only Halo campaign I only played once. I was so disappointed by that ending. I don't even think I was invested in the multiplayer as much as any other Halo game. I think I've barely even played the multiplayer, just because that game turned me off to the franchise so much, because it's like, okay, really? Like like this is like, I was so heartbroken, I think, by 5. And I mean, I don't want to shit on 343, but I feel like they're focusing too much on modern games, like modern game, like pay as you play mechanics, like loot
Hmm.
box mechanics, especially in Halo 4 and 5. And they were trying to think how they could make Halo less like Halo, and it just didn't work for them, as opposed to 4 and 5. And to me, it definitely took away a lot of the luster that was the original Halo trilogy. Um, Games that just brought people together and were so fun and just created so many lifelong bonds. And I think they took a lot of that, and they tried to fix what wasn't broken. I think is a good way to put it. But what are your thoughts what are your thoughts on 343 in regards to their first two Halo games, 4 and 5? Let's save talking about Infinite for right this second.
Yeah, let's. I mean, backtrack a little bit. And if you look at where Bungie initially left, they finished out their contract kind of thing, where they kind of spun away from Microsoft to become independent again. They did Halo 3 ODST, something that's a spin-off that's completely different than the previous games, where you play as an orbital drop shock trooper during the events of Halo 3, which was a big a risk, another risk for
Yeah.
them to take, but it worked because it's like, hey, this is what this game is going to be. This is who you're playing as. Master Chief's kind of out there doing his thing, and it was cool. And then they ended their Halo careers on Halo Reach, which I think a lot of people consider it their favorite game in the series in terms of story. Um, I, Again, that was a great way for them to kind of like hand off the torch. Like, hey, we've left Master Chief in 3. It's yours. This is what we kind of did. Introduce new Spartans, kind of origin, kind of leading up to the original game. And then 343 took it. And 4, I'm okay with 4. It was obviously a new Reclaimer storyline. Okay,
Yeah.
I mean, just some new stuff introduced. I remember, like, which is fine. But realistically, I mean, 5 I think is where they kind of just dropped the ball. Um, I mean, they're not going anywhere. 343 is not going anywhere. They are a studio named after 343 Guilty Spark from Halo. So
Yeah.
they are not going anywhere, and they are a big, big team. Uh, I like Bonnie Ross. She's heading up the studio, so I think they have good talent there, but I don't think I think they lost some direction, particularly leading after five going into Infinite, and there's some interesting trouble issues with Halo Infinite's development reveal kind of thing. But the point is, I mean, 343 is not going anywhere. Halo's not going anywhere. So they just need to figure out what they want to do with the future of story-wise, storyline-wise. Infinite's supposed to be this whole idea. It's the last Halo, whatever you want to say. But they specifically separated the two things. They separated the multiplayer and the campaign. Because the multiplayer, you can just, all of us can just go ahead and download it. You got a PC that can run it, you can download it. You got an Xbox, you can download it. You have to buy the campaign. So what are you going to do with those two different things? Which is interesting. So where do they go storyline wise? Do they really care right now, or are they just focusing on building this multiplayer base and trying to figure out how to monetize it? Because it's free.
Yeah. And I think that's a good place to end part one of this video. We talked a lot about our history with the game and, our thoughts on what the studios have done and why this franchise is so successful. And in part two, we will talk about the latest game in the Halo Master Chief storyline anyway, from 343, which is Halo Infinite. And we will talk about that in part two. So, John, where can the people find you?
You can find me on Twitter at JON_LASTRINA, where you can find me retweeting Fast and Furious things, video game things, wrestling things, possibly music things. Who knows? And also, right here on the Montyverse with my good friend John Monty.
Yeah, John Monty. And you guys know you can find me here on the Montyverse, on the socials, at the Montyverse everywhere. And until next time, guys, stay versed.
Bum, 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 bum.